I'd like to welcome you all this evening. It's great to see you, and welcome to the main house at Homer Park. We will now get started. Secretary, you please take roll call for us, please.
Shirley Carlson.
Here.
Diane Christian.
Here.
Elizabeth Emmett. Here. Dick Moore. Robert Oyster.
Here.
Mary Lou Timpson. Here. David Wright.
Lizzie Lake. Our next item on our agenda is any public comments that are not on the agenda. Anybody?
There is the agenda. Is there an agenda?
Okay. Opportunity. May I have approval of the minutes from the September meeting of 2011?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor? Any commission business? Oh, seeing none, we'll move on to foundation report. Richard Moore is usually our representative for the Homer Palmer Park Foundation. Seeing that he is not available this evening, I will give the report. Anyone that's on the foundation can do it. The foundation, Homer Palmer Park Foundation, met on September 12th, 2011. We did not meet in October because of no agendized items. The report I have in front of me in the minutes, the Dames report, which you will hear later this evening, or right after mine. And in the new business, Thor Miller's family, or Thor Miller, left a grant of $35,751 to the park. And for a project in the park, his daughters are included in keeping informed of how we will be using those monies. Earl Douglas had been in contact, the president had been in contact with the daughter and said we had not so far determined a project, but would keep them posted because of certain family concerns of Earl's. He had not been able to move forward on that item. To date, we have 307 members in the foundation. There was a report. Several board members made note that the foundation Dames were concerned about the library. There was a report given by Denise Kupperman about the library, and at that time they expressed concerns about the foundation and the Dames' regular meetings occur in the house and how that moves forward. Will there be alternate space in the library? Will be built in the park? And there was more discussion about premature to make a decision on the location until it affects the library and the park to be considered in detail. So there were concerns about location and size and so on. Also, the Park and Rec Commission were concerned about the Little League facility and the library and how those would affect the park and family and children use. That was about all. They will be meeting in November and moving forward on their projects. Anybody have anything to add to that? Okay. Dames report, please.
The Dames met a week early, so we met at Betty O'Gallagher's house. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I apologize. And the main thing that we talked about at that time was approving of additional $9,000 to have basically not just the architect but a contractor go and do a study on the actual carriage house floor and what any kind of improvements would do. And we did approve that. Those monies will have to come out from the monies that we have already given to the foundation. Because we paid the architect first, but don't have the money to do that. The other thing we talked about, and this year for the first time in a while, they've had Halloween parties in the past. We're going to have a Halloween party year because we're not having a fundraiser. So Shirley and I and a couple of other people have volunteered to work real hard to make a success of it. And I don't know how many people at this point have, my daughter is taking the invite to be, and she's had a lot of inquiries, but I don't know how many she's actually taken to the state. We will also have our children's tea in December, which is always a very successful event, and that's what I want to say.
Great, thank you. Staff report, do you want to report on or you want to do later? Or
I can do now.
Okay.
We just had 2 items this evening. One of the items, all of you should have in front of you a sheet of paper identifying all of the notes that Steve Tyler took during the walkthrough at the last meeting. And Steve also provided a status of really most of the items were business type items, which as you can see from this report has already been corrected. The 2 items that really is going to be ongoing is that there is some dry spots noted in both the south and the north meadows, and that's something that we need to go through from an irrigation standpoint to make sure that there's adequate coverage and the detailed adjustments can be made. And then the other item that has not been concluded is the requested landscaping that we're going to do well, and that's because the cost of that will have to be direct cost and program. So as soon as we do that, we can report back on anticipated completion date. And then the other thing that we had, just wanted to inform the commission that at the request of the city council at the last meeting, staff is bringing forward an item at the October 19th city council meeting, basically revisiting whether or not the town wants to open up reservations for park use for 2012. As all of you know, earlier this summer, we suspended any 2012 reservations, particularly for weddings, and so that is something that is going to be brought to the council at the October 19th meeting for further direction.
Any questions for staff? Thank you, Mike. Okay. Seeing is that David is not here, and this is the first item on the agenda, we will move to item B. Before we get started, I kind of want to explain to everybody how the meeting will run this evening. We have 2 presentations. We will hear both presentations. First presentation will then go to commission to have any questions they might have of the presenters, and then we will open it to public, close public, and return it back to commission for any questions. We will then move on to the second presentation, same format, commissioners' questions, open it to public, close public, and back to commission. So at this time, I would like so for time purposes, just to ask how many plan to speak tonight, so I can allow time for all to speak who wish to speak. And it's optional to change your mind, so it's just an idea. Okay, so the first up is the hearing from the library committee. I'm going to pass these out to the commissioners. These are their slides, am I correct?
Good evening. My name is Denise Kupperman. I'm the chairperson of the Appleton Library Building Steering Committee. And I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation this evening. Our presentation is similar to the presentation we made on September 8th. And the reason for that is that we just wanted to provide the community at large another opportunity to learn and share some of the information that we have, and also to provide the commissioners the information and the presentation that we made on the 8th, because a number of them were not able to attend. For most of us, or all of us who have worked really closely on this project, we're really very excited about it, and we're really grateful for this opportunity to share the enthusiasm. And we really feel that this is an opportunity for the community to come together and to participate in creating a facility that is great significance and that will benefit the residents, not only now, but the residents of our future. And while there's been energy around improving the library and discussions on how to best go about doing that for many, many years, I mean, it goes back many years, the process to build a new library really began in 2009 when the town of Atherton commissioned an assessment of the structural adequacy of our existing library. And that report concluded the following. The existing library did not meet current minimum seismic standards, and we'll have more detail. And the building would experience extensive damage to structural and or non-structural components during a seismic event. Extensive building modifications would be necessary to meet minimum life safety level criteria and would not address any of the shortcomings in the existing library in terms of how it serves our community. We've made very steady and measured progress since then, and at this stage, the Atherton Library Building Steering Committee, working with the town of Atherton, the San Mateo County Library, and our professionals, have been assessing the data and the reports and the community input that we've received from our various meetings. And at this point, we'd like to share the information that we have.
If you start showing slides, I just want to make sure the commissioners, excuse me, just can see
Our
this.
slides are going to be on this
Thank you.
screen, so that the commissioners do not have to get
Wasn't
for
so-
internet.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's good.
The preliminary information indicates that the site in the park represents the more advantages and opportunities than the existing site. And once the preferred site for the new library has been identified, the process will continue with an EIR for our recommended preferred site. And we will continue to work with the community to establish the community's priorities for the new library in terms of the spaces that they would like to see in that library. I'd now like to talk about the format for this evening. We're going to begin with a presentation on a number of topics, and they will basically cover the financing behind the library, the ideas behind a contemporary library, a library for Atherton, the structural assessments and environmental impacts that we have learned to date, and an analysis of the sites. After that point, we will turn the meeting back over to the commissioners. Thank you for your attention, and I would like to introduce you to Louise Ho, our town controller, and we are very grateful and thankful that she is taking the time tonight to present this material to us.
Okay. Good evening. I'm here tonight for three purposes. One is just to give everyone a brief history of the library JPA. Then I'm going to talk about where the library funding is coming from. And at the end, I would like to give everyone a projection on where the fund balance will be for library fund. First of all, the library in our town is actually managed by a JPA. And the JPA was established in 1912 by the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors under the authority of the County Free Library Law. The library JPA have 12 branches in 12 cities, and the 12 cities are Atherton, Belmont, Brisbane, East Palo Alto, Foster City, Half Moon Bay, Millbrae, Pacifica, Portola Valley, Woodside, and the unincorporated area of the San Mateo County. It covers 351 square miles and 286,000 people. The library JPA is governed by a board, which is made up of representatives from member cities. The board approves and oversees the library operation and the budget and monitoring the standard that is currently operating by the county. The county free library law allows the JPA to levy a special tax to fund library operations. Currently, the average tax rate for the San Mateo Library JPA is about 0.032% or 3.2 cents for every $100 of assessed property value. When the property tax value exceeds the amount necessary to run the library operation, the excess is set aside by the library JPA and returned to the member city as what we call the Library Donor City Fund. And that library fund is returned to the individual city and is strictly for library purpose only, so it's a restricted fund. Currently, we have 3 cities that have the donor city funds available for their use. It's Atherton, Watauga Valley, and Woodside. The donor city fund that is returned to Atherton allows all Athertons to pay for additional services for the library or for maintenance, construction, or renovation of the facilities. Next, I would like to talk about the funding source for the future library if the project is going forward. Because with the high property value in Atherton, we are expecting in fact, we are almost completely closed the book for fiscal year 2011. As of June 30th, 2011, the Atherton Library accumulated close to $5.6 million in the JPA Library Donor Fund. And that amount is expected to increase if the property value continue and grow at the way that we have seen in the past. It's expecting to have generated every year in excess of $750,000. If we take this projection forward and get to 2015, it's estimated that the Library Donor City Fund for Atherton would have a total sum of $8.3 million. The next is going to show the projected library funding for the project. This is estimate coming from the architect. And again, I want to emphasize, this is just an estimate for presentation purpose. No decision has been made regarding the site location or the size of the building. But this is just to give you an idea that if a facility is 9,800 square feet with LEED Gold certification, the cost today is estimated, and it's just an estimate, is going to be $7.4 million. If it's for a building that is 11,100 square feet, the same LEED certified gold status is estimated to be $8.2 million. So in conclusion, this is just to give the audience and the commissioner a presentation strictly from a finance standpoint, what does the town have in resource for any library purpose, and what is the projected cost for the future, take it all the way to 2015 with the assumption that the revenue trend will continue. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ann Rita Spain, and I'm the Library Director for the San Mateo County Library. And I was asked to come and talk a little bit about the contemporary library, the library that we're seeing in modern times, and then also some of the national trends. So the modern public library has evolved with time, and we are changing to meet the changing needs of our communities. But many of the core principles that libraries stood for in the past are still really the vital principles that we look towards today. So public libraries are ideal community and civic engagement leaders, and really pillars of democracy because they are trusted, they're non-political, and they're positive organizations. Libraries are essential places of opportunity because they level the playing field, making the world of information available to everybody. Libraries are essential partners in creating educated communities because we provide opportunities for early literacy, lifelong learning, and self-education and self-improvement. Most important of all, a library is a place for everyone. A library in a community stands as a testimonial to the community's values and their beliefs that universal access to knowledge and literature should be available for everybody. So some of the national trends that we're seeing, and I'll just kind of hit these briefly, but libraries are really becoming community cornerstones, and this is for a couple reasons. during economic downturns or hardships like we're experiencing currently, libraries really are a bustling place, and our community members are turning to libraries. Many cities have also found libraries to really be economic drivers and keystones to communities. So they do drive business, and many of our communities are looking at locating libraries in places that they want to attract community members. We are leaders in literacy, and as you probably know, low literacy rates contribute to poverty, crime, dependence on government assistance, and poor health. So that's an important consideration for communities. Libraries are technology hubs. We offer computers, and if you bring your own computer, we offer wireless access, fast wireless access, to many of our community members who don't have that access, and we really bridge that digital divide. We offer, libraries are really on the forefront of offering convenience and self-service, efficient services, and really embracing technology to create efficiencies. We also see many, many libraries throughout the country that are really leading the partnerships and programs in their communities. So partnering with seniors, schools, as in the traditional sense, but also partnering now with many social agencies, job training, doing lots of programming. We see libraries that are really trying to harness different spaces that welcome everybody and create a space for everybody in the community, and then also really excite and delight children in the enjoyment of reading. And then finally, many libraries are really on the forefront of creating flexible spaces, because libraries are serving so many different needs that it's important that we remain very flexible and adaptable. And so many of the old shelving or furniture is not easily adaptive to the new uses of today. And then finally, probably the biggest trend that we're seeing that libraries are talking about is the need for communities for gathering space, and that people are now coming back together and wanting a place other than home or work to create that civic engagement. And so libraries are really becoming gathering spaces and becoming the heart of their community. And then finally, so how does this all relate to Atherton Library and what we've been talking about for Atherton? And I won't go into much detail because I know Kathy's going to talk about this. But Atherton is a one-room library, and so we really don't have defined spaces. So there's a need to define and create spaces for everybody. So the children overflow into the adult, and so we want to create a place for quiet and noisy and all of those different needs. Collections, we're looking at expanding collections. Seating, again, there's limited seating. Addressing technology and creating more technology and different technology as technology is advancing so much. There isn't a program or study rooms, and that always is a high need on any of our lists or our community surveys. And then finally, what I talked about, which is that flexibility that's so important to the modern library. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Page, who is our consultant.
I was sort of hoping to stand over here so I could see the slides, but I guess you can see me from here. And, good evening, commissioners. It's great to be back and be able to talk with you one more time. And Anne-Marie's been describing library services regionally and nationally, and I'd like to talk a little bit about how the Atherton Library is being used, and just how a new or improved facility could
impact library services for this community. Anne Marie mentioned some of the limitations of the existing building, which is really a too little space and one space. We have one volume space there, but despite the constraints of the current facility, the community is using it. We did an analysis of the trends, the usage trends over the last 5 years, and the stats indicate that there's actually a trending upward of in the various ways that we measure library service. The library visitors over the past 5 years, we've actually seen a modest 3.5% per year increase in the number of people who come in person to the library. Last year, the last full fiscal year that we had numbers for, we actually saw over 81,000 visitors. This doesn't even count the people who use the library website or do their conduct their library business online, which there are quite a few. But so we if you look at it on a weekly basis, we see last year we saw between 1,500 and 1,600 people visit the library every week, which is not insignificant. And then circulation, or the checking out of library books and media, is also rising, and rising at a higher rate. Every year there have been almost 6% more items being checked out. So about 129,000 items, books and AV was checked out last year. Another thing that I find interesting is the children's programming, which has become a more in demand and a more popular service over the past 5 years. There's been every year about a 10% increase in the number of story times and the number of people coming. That's adults and children. Last year, the staff offered close to 120 story times, which is about an average of 2 a week. If you've never been in the library when the story times happen, you know it's a boisterous event and essentially takes over the space. Let's go to the next slide. And we wanted to look at the collection too. You always want to see not only how many items you have, but are they used and what's the pattern of that use. And in looking, we took a snapshot of the circulation stats for the first half of this fiscal year, or 2011. And interestingly, about just under 60% of the circulations are for books. So people are still checking out books. These are the physical books. The library has a growing digital book collection as well. We're just talking about the physical books now. And then almost 40% of the materials going out are audiovisual, the DVDs, the audiobooks, both for adult and children. It's also interesting that there's a pretty good distribution between adult materials and juvenile materials. So I think the materials that you have, and this I would say about the county library generally, are well selected, well maintained. This library system does a very good job at making sure that what they do have it earns its space on the shelf. I would just say that. Next slide. So, as I mentioned, the library does offer both a physical collection, what we're now calling a physical collection. We used to just talk about the library collection. Now we have to distinguish between the print materials, the things that you can hold in your hand, and then the digital materials, which you can download. The San Mateo County Library and the Atherton Library offer both, and they plan to continue to develop both the print and the electronic materials system-wide. It's crucial that this new library facility that we're looking at has as much flexibility as possible, so that the technology offered when it opens, and it could be several years before it opens, is appropriate to the community's needs at that time.
and continue to meet the evolving needs over time. I've been in the library business since 1971, and I've watched formats come and go. I've seen it's been just a constant sort of turnover of what we need to provide in the library, and we have people who are at the cutting edge, and then people who are clinging dearly to materials or to formats that most people are no longer using. So it's almost as though the library needs to serve both ends of the spectrum and everything in between. That's really one of our challenges as librarians. But we also we have to make sure that the technology that we provide supports whatever configuration of materials we have at the time. The program that we're developing for the new library will offer flexibility. We're trying to put in as much dual-use space, as much multi-purpose space as possible. We want to allow visitors to have choices when they come into the building, so they will have zones for active activities like the Children's Story Hour and for solo, quiet, contemplative service activities too, like just reading a book. But we want to be able to serve all of the group activities. Anne-Marie talked about how people are looking to come to the library for really interactive and sort of group activities, collaborative activities. There are the bridge classes, the knitting groups, the lectures, the cooking demonstrations, book clubs. It's amazing what can be done and is done in your library now, even though there's no appropriate space for it. Next slide. We also need to have space, retains and creates space for simple traditional uses too, like simply sitting and reading a book. This community's needs and expectations are varied. It's we cannot accommodate everything in one single box of space. So it's critical that we preserve some space for solitary pursuits. Some people we talked to in the focus group said, I just want a quiet place to curl up with a book. Other people just want a quiet place to curl up with their iPad. It runs the gamut. Next slide. And finally, the library also has a responsibility to support and celebrate the community's heritage.